Hello everyone and welcome to our video discussion for today. By the way, I am LYKA AYUBAN and our topic is all about the lesson 1.4 outcomes of teacher education. So our learning outcomes. A. Explain the basic principles of the different theories of learning. B. Explain PALMA's purposive behaviorism. C. Explain Bandura's social learning theory. And D. Discuss how students' cognitive abilities enable learning to take place. So first, we should talk about the learning-centered learning theories. So first is the behaviorism. So under behaviorism, it assumes that the learner is essentially passive, simply responding to their environmental stimuli. So when we speak of environmental stimuli, it is anything that can catch their attention. So anything that are happening outside or in the environment could serve as a stimuli to them. So next is behavior theorists therefore believe that a learner basically begins as a clean slate, and their behavior is shaped by positive and negative reinforcement. That means that whatever the behavior is, it is because of the positive and negative reinforcement given to them. So again, this is under behaviorism. So next is it focuses on the study of observable and measurable behavior. So when we speak observable, so those things that can be perceived by the senses, since we are using our senses in observing things and measurable, so that means that there is a gauge wherein the behavior can be measured. So under the same theory, it emphasizes that behavior is mostly learned through conditioning and reinforcement, and that is reward and punishment. So as a future educator, so we have to ensure that there is really need the reward a system in our classroom so that the behavior can be reinforced. Though a punishment may contradict to some debit order or can mean also contradict some of the basic laws in the country, so does not give much attention to the mind and the possibility of thought processes, attention when it comes to what is happening in the mind of the students, but it is more into the behavior of the students. So the proponents of this are Pablo, Watson, Thorndike, and Skinner. So that is under behaviorism. So next theory is about the Connectionism. So learning theory developed by George Simmons and Stephen Downes. So the knowledge is out there according to them. It is a matter of making the connections. So we teach our students there are a lot of knowledge there are a lot of topics, contents that we can share with them that depends on your field of specialization. If you are in science, then you are sharing knowledge about science. Or if you are specializing mathematics, then you are sharing with them mathematical concept, especially right now that it's pandemic. The number one source of knowledge right now is in the fact that internet. Yes, teachers are there, books are there, but still majority of those knowledge that we can take will come from the internet. You search for informations, so the knowledge is out there. The problem is how can you be able to get that knowledge and how can you connect that knowledge in your own perspective? Okay, so that means as stated in this theory, it is a matter of making connections. So why is it a matter of making connections? Because for students to learn the content or the topic that you are discussing to them, that content or topic should be close to their experiences. So you have to connect your topic with those things can be experienced. So just like for example, when you are talking about mall and you met someone who lived in a faraway place and she or he didn't experience going to a mall. So in that case, they can't connect with you because of the fact that they haven't experienced it So that is why in teaching, you need to connect to your students with their experiences and with yours so that they can understand it well. So that is the connectionism is all about. Next, we talk about Edward Lee Thorne. So one of the famous proponent of this theory is Edward Lee Thorne. So it gave us the original framework of SNR, framework behavioral psychology. So SNR is the stimulus response framework. So it explained that learning is the result of association forming between stimuli and responses. And the model for SNR theory was tried and error learning, in which certain responses came to be repeated and others because of rewards. Okay, so just imagine in modern times, for you to be able to train dogs, like you tell them, okay, sit, play dead, roll over, and so on and so forth. So there is a small amount of food off your hand, and after a successful treat, you have to give it to the dog, so that reward, so that the dog can always repeat what you are telling to them. So in case of learners or students, so that stimuli will have the same response, that there should be a reward, so that it for Edward Lee Thorne died. So that is all my report for today, and thank you.
Everyone, I am my bagong Baran, and I am going to discuss the three primary laws of Thorndike, which is the law of effect, law of exercise, and law of readiness. First is I'm going to discuss the law of effect. Law of effect, a connection between a stimulus and response is strengthened when the consequence is positive, and the connection between the stimulus and the response is weakened when the consequence is negative. So sa law of effects, you have to look the consequences. You have to it answer the it was like, what will be the effect, what will be the reward. Like for example, in the classroom settings sa classroom is very diverse. May estudyante na very extrovert, may estudyante na very introvert, and students show this behavior. What will be the consequences? Like for example, a students na very introvert, hindi siya nakikisalamuha, hindi siya nag-participate sa klase. So how will you stimulus that student para how will you stimulate the student para mag-participate siya sa klase? So what, like papagalitan mo, or you will, or what will you do para mag-participate siya sa classroom? And meron din naman mga students na very magalaw. Like for example, sa pamangkin ko, kapag ginatid ko siya sa daycare, ako kasi yung naghatid sa kanya sa school, so kapag ginatid ko siya sa daycare, is very umiiyak, ayaw mag-participate. So sometimes kapag naiirita ako, kinukurot ko siya, or something like tinatakot ko, hala, sige, hindi ka makinig kay ma'am, kay pagdating sa bahay paluin kita. And then ang sabi sa akin ng kanyang teacher is, wag daw ganon, wag takutin yung bata, kasi instead na mag-learn siya, matatakot na lang yung bata. Like especially sa mga bata talaga is, kapag pinagalitan mo yan, mas lalakasan niya yung iyak niya. Tapos may mga time pa na uuwi na lang daw siya. So what will be the effect of your actions? Ano yung magiging epekto nito sa bata if, like for example, yung nakagawa siya ng mabuti, like naka-perfect sa exam? Of course, you have to recognize that the students got perfect in the exam para naman ganahan siya pumasok. And then kapag naman like showing some bad behavior, and then hindi siya pwede sabihin na sige paluin kita or like ganyan. No, you have to, of course kailangan ng punishment, but not to the extent na matakot yung bata. So that is the law of effect. So next is law of exercise. Law of exercise tell us that the more an stimulus response band in practice, the stronger it will become. So sa law of exercise, the more practice, di ba nga may kasabihan tayo na practice makes perfect. So giving series of activities para ma-retain nila, or like pasagutin yung like letting the students answer the question, like magtawag ng estudyante para sumagot, and then magpa-activity. That is the law of exercise. Next is law of readiness. The more readiness the learner has to respond to the stimulus, the stronger will be the bond between them. When a person is ready to a stimulus and is not made to respond, it becomes annoying to the person. Sa law of readiness is yan yung like for example sa bigla ka nalang papasok sa classroom, and then magsabi ka na, okay class, get 1 half sheet of paper, we are going to have a quiz. And then of course that action is negative. That is not good for the students, especially that ang mga estudyante is kapag hindi yan sila ready, okay, so magpapaquiz ka, and then they did not study the lesson. So of course before you quiz, i-retain mo muna yung napag-aralan the other day, like okay class, so before I will give you 5 minutes to study the lesson that we have tackled yesterday, and I will give quiz. So yun yung law of readiness. Dapat ipa-reading mo yung estudyante, kasi kapag ang reinforce is bigla mo siya tinanggal, like nasanay ang estudyante na may reward, tapos kapag bigla mo gi-pull out yung reward, and then yun, hindi sila magiging ready, like nasanay ang mga estudyante. Like for example, like kanina sinabi ko na kapag yung pagpasok mo pa lang is magpasabi ka na agad na, okay class, may quiz, while ang nakasanay ng estudyante mo is before you give quizzes, you give time for them to study. So that is the law of readiness. Then okay, so next is principles of derived from Thorndike's Connectionisms, and there are 4 principles. First is learning requires both practice and reward. So the laws of effect and exercise. So ang learning kailangan ng practice and reward. So halimbawa, giving a series of activities, lots of activities that the students could practice. Yun nga, diba, is practice makes perfect. And then like halimbawa naka-perfect sa exam, so what will be the reward? So not totally na kailangan talaga is reward na something big, or is kasi you can reward the students by recognizing the students that the student got the perfect exam. So what will you do? What will you reward? Okay, so posting that student name to the board, or giving recognition certificate of recognition, or yes. So next is number 2 is a series of SR connection can be chained together if they belongs to the same action. Then law of readiness. So like what I said, kailangan ang estudyante ready. So uh, like before you give quizzes, you have to give time to the students to study. So that's it. And then number 3 is transfer of learning occurs because of previously encountered situations. So ang estudyante kapag nag-learn siya is niya connecting the new lesson to the old lessons. So kung ano yung napag-aralan niya, mariretain sa utak niya kapag nakita niya yung lesson ngayon is connected siya sa lesson kahapon. Ganun yun. Then, number 4 is intelligence is a function of the number of connection learned. So, the more the learners connect their knowledge or the learning, the more they become intelligent. So, yun ba, yung connect their, their knowledge. And then, behaviorisms by Tolman and Bandora will be discussed by my group mate, the next reporter. So, that's all. Okay, so that's all and thank you.
Hi everyone, I am the third reporter of this group. I am Razel Brina, and this is the continuation of May Bagumbaran's report. So now, let us discuss the Tolman's purposive behaviorism. So purposive behaviorism has been referred as a sign learning theory and is often seen as a link between behaviorism and cognitive theory. They are linked with each other because these two theory explain the learning process of human beings or individuals. The cognitive learning focus on the internal or the mind process, and then the behaviorism will do its external or how person will act on his or her mental process of behavior. Tolman believed that learning is a cognitive process. As what I have said, that cognitive process is about the knowledge of or the mind part, which means that learning is a process done by the brain or the mind. Learning involves building belief in the acquisition of knowledge about the environment and then the discovery of knowledge through purposeful and objective behavior. In Tolman's key concept, this is a learning theory that was in response to behaviorism. The psychologists who promoted this idea claimed that behaviorism failed to explain cognition because cognition and cognitive theory is different with each other, because when we say cognition, it is a state or process that involves knowing, but in this theory, mind is a information processor. This only focuses on what they are thinking. It emphasizes understanding the concept as a whole instead of just the piece. This is the learning theory that was thought in developing online education using Bloom's taxonomy. So this online learning is already used by some of people, especially celebrities. This online learning or education is just highlighted because of the pandemic, but whether traditional or learner-centered teaching or online education learning, we are still able to develop this behaviorism. So now let's proceed to social learning theory by Albert Bandura. So this theory emphasizes the importance of observing and modeling the behaviors, attitude, and emotional reactions of students or others. Since we are talking about social learning, we can saw this to students who was an influence from teachers. Like, teachers are being the models of the students. That's why they have this emotional reaction. Emotional reaction is not only about the sad, happiness, or etc., but it is also about the reactions of students on how he was able to be a person like what the teacher is doing. So according to Honduras, learning would be exceedingly laborious, and not to mention hazardous if people had to rely solely on the effects of their own reactions or actions to inform them what to do. This theory also explains human behavior in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influence. There are four component processes underlying observational learning, and that's our attention, retention, motor reproduction, and motivation. The first is attention. It includes modeled events and observer characteristics. In modeled events, it could be distinctiveness, effectiveness, valence, complicity, prevalence, and functional value. And in observer characteristic, it could be sensory capacities, arousal level, and receptual set, and past reinforcement. In here, students are getting the attention to the teacher. Like, for example, kinder students, di ba before mag-start ang discussion sa teacher is na ay icebreaker una or exercise. Pero ang kinder students, di ba, is diligent na siya dahil makakapi sa dance or any icebreakers sa teacher. That's why the learners building their attention to the teacher for them to able to do so the dance step. And the teacher kasi dito is the model, and then when he or she get the attention of students and the students start to observe what the teacher is doing, they might be able to copy on the dance steps. This is the reason why these four components of process is connected to each other. Like in my example, kinder have the attention to the teacher or the model because there is something act that they wanted to do, and if students have already attention to the model or the teacher, they may start imitating or retain. That is why in the second component, there is an retention because it includes symbolic components and cognitive rehearsal and motor rehearsal. They starting to act or rehearse and retain then the steps they get. This way, learners may be also able to be a motor reproduction that includes physical capacity, and reproduction is if those steps can be done in their own, and the last is the motivation. This way, if the learner saw his or her co-learners doing the dance, he has the motivation to do it because he can motivate him or herself to the steps, and that's why he or she can be able to reinforce the dance. There are general principles of social learning theory. The first is people can learn by observing the behaviors of others and the outcomes of those behaviors. Means that through observation, everyone can also learn. We have the capacities and learning in different ways, and one of these is observing. We can learn in observing other people. Like, for example, I have something that I made that made my teacher mad. Through observing me, you can learn that if you made those things that I made, your teacher may also get mad. So you will avoid doing it. So you learn that doing those things that I made is a wrong behavior and can cause mad to the teacher. The second general principle is learning can occur without a change in behavior. It means that we can learn even if not changing in terms of behaviors, because learning is through mind and understanding, and it is not learning through behaviors, but learning can affect our behaviors. The third one is cognition plays a role in learning. As I always say, cognition is a state of process of acquiring knowledge. From the word itself, acquiring knowledge. Through acquisition, we are able to understand thoughts, experiences, or any way that can process us in learning. And the last general principle is social learning can be considered a bridge or a transition between behaviors, learning theories, and cognitive theories, learning theories. It can be a bridge because Through social learning, we can learn from one another because it encompasses attention, memory, and motivation.
So good day everyone, my name is Vincent AGUIRRE and let us proceed to Cognitivism. So cognitive development of the mind and anything that is produced by it. So the psychology of learning, which emphasizes human cognition or intelligence as a special endowment enabling men to form hypotheses and develop intellectuality. It involves examining learning memory, problem-solving skills, and intelligence. Okay, so as teachers, we have to be very good in our own cognitive development. And when we give activities to our students, it should target a memory, opera and problem-solving skills of your students. So do not tell them to answer a certain activity, without telling them what's the purpose of it, without you checking it in front of them so that they can be able to learn more as you check the activity. So how does learning occur? Learning is equated with discrete changes between states of knowledge rather with changes in the probability of response. Focus on the conceptualization of students' learning processes and address the issue of how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. So last is from Jonathan. Learning is concerned not so much with what learners do, but with what they know and how they come to acquire it. So these are the factors that influence learning. So cognitivism, like behaviorism, emphasizes the role that environmental conditions play in facilitating learning. So in that context, we have to analyze the term environmental conditions because as stated here, it plays a role in facilitating learning. So what are these environmental conditions? So anything that are happening outside that could affect your students. For example, students can learn more when they are in a not cut out or not grounded place. Let's say the number of students in one classroom is only 25 or 30. Versus the same size of classroom and there are 15 to 60 students. So that's one environmental condition. And let's say the heat in the room, so not properly ventilated and the other things. So there are environmental conditions in instructional explanations, demonstrations, illustrative examples, and much non-examples are all considered to be instrumental in guiding student learning. Okay, so it includes demonstration. So there could be a demo teacher, illustrative, and much non-examples in the instructional explanation. So in these pandemic times, just like what we are doing, the teachers keep on producing video lessons which are considered to be as instructional explanations. Similarly, emphasizes is placed on the role of practice with corrective input. So when we give feedback, it should be corrective. It should be you are targeting to give feedback to it. You are giving feedback so that the work will become better in the end. So learners' thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and values are also considered to be influential in the learning process, of course. So what are the thoughts of your learners? What are the videos? What are the attitudes? What are the values? So one thing that I can tell is that the students should properly be motivated to learn. They should have dreams. They should believe that one of the keys to become successful someday is to gain knowledge through formal education setting. So the real purpose of cognitive approach is on changing the learning by encouraging him or her to use appropriate learning strategies. So how does transfer occur? According to cognitive theories, transfer is a function of how information is stored in memory. Next, when a learner understands how to apply knowledge in different contexts, then transfer has occurred. Next, prior knowledge is used to establish boundary constraints from identifying the similarities and differences of novel information. And last is, learner must believe that the knowledge is useful in a given situation before he will activate it. So what now are the classroom implications? So when creating and implementing a learning environment, it is imperative that the teachers not only create a setting that promotes learning, but also take the time to understand each child. So it's not only about the physical environment that we are talking about. Let's say Archeon, but that's considered to be as physical, and in this statement it is being said that we could also learn what kind of learners do we have and understand this kind of learner. So as I mentioned before, if you have 50 students, then you have 50 kinds of students with different needs and different personalities. Speaker to properly manage their classrooms and establish expectations will be able to incorporate diverse teaching philosophies and create an excellent learning. So environment for each student, saying that we are instructional leaders, so we teach our students, we also manage them. So that's another function of us. So we have to incorporate and diverse the teaching class, teaching philosophy. So when we speak of diverse, we are utilizing a lot of teaching philosophies. Do not focus in so there are a lot of teaching philosophy that can be able to use in order to facilitate learner. So centered teaching, and it's important that teachers create a learning environment that encourage students to do their best and makes learning interesting. This creates a motivational climate within the classroom. So I would agree to this. No, I'm just imagining a student who's having a problem at home will have the same problem when they went to school. So that means, how can they be motivated in learning if there is no difference between the home and in the school? Well, of course, in another context, if the home is friendly, then
Good day to you, everyone. I am HAFSAH BALINDONG, and I'll be continuing the discussion by proceeding to cognitive development implied in the classroom by Piaget's theory. Okay, so the first statement of cognitive development implied in the classroom means that the teacher should mind the child's cognitive development when they are given tasks because the child might find it difficult. The task should be something that is designed to the child's level of cognitive development so they could take the task when they're prepared, and it should be motivating for them to finish the task. The second statement means that the teacher should also give the child the opportunities to learn and discover more, to improve or enhance each of the developmental stage. The teacher also has to balance their guidance to teach the child and allowing opportunities to let them discover and learn on their own. The third statement means that the teacher should not solely focus on the end product when the child learns on their own. They should also mind the process of how the child learns, and they should also properly guide the child and properly observe so they wouldn't misinterpret or might come to a conclusion that isn't right. The fourth statement means that teachers should also give opportunities for the children to learn from their peers so they can view the other's perspective, and it could help break down the child egocentrism. It is important to set the children in small groups so they can share to the other peers of what they have learned, and in this way, the children could learn other views on their lessons. Piaget also believed that teachers should act as guides to the children's learning process and that the curriculum should be adapted to individual needs and developmental levels. So, let's proceed to examples of cognitive games in the classroom. Cognitive games are designed to help the brain to stimulate. These games could help improve the children's reflexes. It helps the children to learn, promote critical thinking, and help the children to learn different ways to associate with others. This game also helps to learn foreign language and to memorize. So there are a lot of examples of cognitive games. One of them is educational websites and computer games. Most educational website computer games focus on stimulating a child's senses while engaging them in various cognitive tasks. Below are 3 of the many learning websites that are available to enhance cognitive development in young children. The examples are PDS Kids Educational Games, Spelling City, Cognitive Fun Games, and EDUCARRE. The second one is sorting. Sorting games require individuals to utilize recognition and reasoning. Teacher can engage children in games in which the children sort items by various criteria such as color, size, texture, and other physical attributes of the items. A more advanced approach to sorting is discussing how the items are similar. This process promotes critical thinking. The third one is flashcards. Flashcards can be used to various tasks. This involves note cards or an even scrap of paper in which 2 parts of information is written on the other side of the note card. Flashcards are typically used in classroom for drills or even private study. These cards are used to aid memorization. The fourth one is board games. Teachers may include board games in their classroom to promote cognitive development, unlike computer and video games. Children can manipulate different pieces of the game. Board games can be implemented to enhance mathematical and linguistic skills and enhance a child's ability to understand and follow directions. Examples of board games are Monopoly and Bingo. The last one is puzzle. Finding a solution to a puzzle develops a child's problem-solving ability. Children who actively solve puzzles that they are able to touch and piece together are more likely to understand certain concepts and develop their own theories about the concept. So now, let's proceed to principles of constructivism. The first one is knowledge is constructed rather than innate or passively absorbed. Constructivism's central idea is that human learning is constructed, that learners build new knowledge upon the foundation of previous learning. The prior knowledge influences what new or modified knowledge an individual will construct from new learning experiences. The second one is learning is an active process. Learning is an active rather than passive process. The passive view of teaching views the learner as an empty vessel to be filled with knowledge, where constructivism states that learners construct meaning only through active engagement with the world, such as experiments or real-world problem solving. Information may be passively received, but understanding cannot be, for it must come from making meaningful connections between prior knowledge, new knowledge, and the processes involved in learning. The third one is all knowledge is socially constructed. According to Dewey in 1938, learning is a social activity. It is something we do together in interaction with each other rather than an abstract concept. An example of this from Vygotsky in 1978 believed that community plays a certain role in the process of making meaning. For him, the environment in which children grow up will influence how they think and what they think about. Thus, all teaching and learning is a matter of sharing and negotiating socially constituted knowledge. Another example of this by Vygotsky in 1978 states cognitive development stems from social interaction from guided learning within the zone of proximal development as children and their partners co-construct knowledge. The fourth one is all knowledge is personal. So each individual learner has a distinctive point of view based on existing knowledge and values. This means that the same knowledge, teaching, or activity may result in different learning by each pupil, as their subjective interpretations differ. The principle appears to contradict the view that knowledge is socially constructed. For Fox in 2001 argues that although individuals have their own personal history of learning, nevertheless they can share in common knowledge, and that although education is a social process powerfully influenced by cultural factors, nevertheless cultures are made of subcultures. Even to the point of being composed of subcultures of one. Cultures and their knowledge base are constantly in a process of change, and the knowledge stored by individual is not a rigid copy of some socially constructed template. In learning culture, each child changes that culture. The last one is learning exists in the mind. According to Driscoll,
Hello everyone, my name is Ray Matthew BILAD. This is the continuation of our report. Now, this is the three main types of constructivism. So, cognitive constructivism. Cognitive constructivism states knowledge, something that is actively constructed by learners based on their existing cognitive structures. Learning is relative to their stage of cognitive development, aimed to assist students in assimilating new information to existing knowledge and enabling them to make them appropriate modifications to their existing intellectual framework to accommodate that information. And the next one is according to social constructivism, learning is a collaborative process and knowledge develops from individual interactions with their culture and society. Now, according to cognitive constructivism, knowledge is actively constructed by learners based on their existing cognitive structures. So, cognitive structure means it is the fundamental mental process that people utilize in order to make sense of information. So as a result, learning is relative to their cognitive development stage. Now, learning, according to cognitive constructivism, it is a process of building and sharing. It is how people grow personally and professionally, because knowledge is actively constructed. Learning is characterized as an active discovery process. Now, so cognitive learning strategies example. Now, students are being asked to reflect on their experiences. So trying to help students in finding like new solution to their problems. Encourage students to talk about what they are learning, and assisting students in exploring and comprehending how ideas are related. So the social constructivism, so it was developed by Lev Vygotsky in 1978. So the next one is every function in a child's cultural development appear twice, first on the social level and later on in the individual level. The second one is between people, interpsychological, and then inside the child, or intrapsychological. Social constructivism is a sociological theory of knowledge that holds the human development and socially situated in all that knowledge is established through interaction with others. So social constructionism, like social constructivism is like social constructionism, states that individuals collaborate to develop artifacts. Now, what is the difference between the constructivism and social constructionism? So constructivism are concerned with what happens within the people's minds or brains, whereas social constructivism is or are concerned with what happens between people as they collaborate to create realities. The third one, which is the radical constructivism, developed by Ernest von Glaserfeld in 1974, and states that all knowledge is constructed rather than perceived through senses. Learning construct new knowledge on the foundations of their existing knowledge. The next one is the knowledge individuals create tells us nothing's about reality and only help us to function in your environment. Thus, knowledge is invented, not discovered. Now, Ernest von Glaserfeld gave the term radical constructivism to emphasize that any constructivism must be complete from an epistemological point of view. Now, epistemological means it is relating to the theory of the knowledge, especially in regarding into methods, validity, and scope. And also a distinction between the justified belief and opinion.
So this time, we will be talking about the teachers' quality in the Philippines. And based from the definition, the Philippine Professional Standards for Teacher defined as the quality of teachers in the Philippines. Here in our country, it is expected that they have a high standards teachers when it comes to their experience, level of knowledge, practices, and professional engagements. So based on my personal observation, once you apply here as a teacher, they were going to first look for your teacher's license and ask you how long you've been teaching, or if it is your first time or you are a fresh graduate. And as we all know, when you apply to the DepEd or Department of Education or in the public schools, they are required for a teaching experience, whether you teach as a private teacher for as long as 2 to 3 years. But I am not sure about that, and it was just based from my observation. But the very important thing is whether you are a private or public teacher, you have the same motive, which is to teach, bring high quality of teaching rather, satisfy your students, show your dignity as a teacher, such as good attitude, show care, discipline, respect, and integrity to your students, as you were tasked to become their second parents when they were in school. 7 domains. So the following are the domains required to become an effective 21st century teacher in the Philippines. And these are the following characteristics you must acquire. So the first characteristic is to recognize the importance of mastery of content knowledge and its interconnectedness within and across curriculum areas, coupled with a sound and critical understanding of application of theories and principle of teaching and learning. They apply developmentally appropriate and meaningful pedagogy grounded on content knowledge and current research. They display proficiency in mother tongue, Filipino, and English to facilitate the teaching and learning process, as well as exhibit the needed skills in the use of communication strategies, teaching strategies, and technologies to promote high-quality learning outcomes. The first characteristic shows that a teacher must know the application of theories and principle of teaching and learning. First, you must secure that what is written in the content knowledge must be connected to what you are teaching. In short, follow what is being instructed and broaden your knowledge and understanding. Make sure that you can be able to speak multilingually, or that means you are proficient to mother tongue, Filipino, and English, so that you can assess students' question and you can be able to elaborate your answer in a way that your students can really understand. And lastly, it was stated there how you can use your teaching strategies. So teaching strategies means the materials you are using, or what way or form of teaching may use to promote high quality of learning outcomes you may achieve. Like for example, you can make use of technologies such as PPT or PowerPoint presentation, as well as video presentation. This will change your IT skills, since we are already on a 21st century learning, wherein it is more enhanced. And the second characteristic is to provide learning environment that are safe, secure, fair, and supportive in order to promote learner responsibility and achievement. They create an environment that is learning focused, and they efficiently manage learner behavior in a physical and virtual space. They utilize a range of resources and provide intellectually challenging and stimulating activities to encourage constructive classroom interactions geared towards the attainment of high standards of learning. So in this characteristic, the teacher must ensure that the students are secure and safe when it comes to the environment, and most especially the fairness of teacher. They must not give special treatment to the other students, and inside the classroom, teachers are obliged to manage students' behavior, whether it is physical or virtual, to support and provide a learning-focused environment. Also, this time upon checking the learning progress of students, teacher must provide activities to students and let them construct their own answer and learning. The third characteristic is to establish learning environment that are responsive to learners' diversity. They respect learners' diverse characteristic and experience as inputs to the planning and design of learning opportunities. They encourage the celebration of diversity in the classroom and the need for teaching practices that are differentiated to encourage all learners to be successful citizens in a changing local and global environment. So, teachers must be open to show respect from learners' diverse characteristics. That means students are allowed to create and design their own learning opportunities based from their experiences, and teachers must encourage their students to participate in any activities that happen to be done in the classroom that can help for teaching practices, and must encourage to be a successful citizen both local and global environment. So the fourth characteristic of this, or the fourth domain, is they interact with the national and local curriculum requirements. They translate curriculum content into learning activities that are relevant to learners and based on the principles of effective teaching and learning. They apply their professional knowledge to plan and design, eventually or in collaboration with colleagues. Well-structured and sequenced lessons that are contextually relevant, responsive to learners' needs, and incorporate a range of teaching and learning resources. They communicate learning goals to support learner participation, understanding, and achievement. This time, teacher must follow what is given in the curriculum. Like for example, in the K-12 curriculum, it was written there the learning standards, context standards, learning materials, and etc. that can be used by the teacher in terms of planning, or should I say lesson plan, wherein it provides activities, performance tasks, and assignments that can be done by the students. Also, it includes the learning goals to support students' participation, understanding, and achievement on, or other word, it is expected to have students' learning outcomes.
Career stages of Filipino professional teachers. Teacher professional development happens in a continuum from beginning to explanatory practice. The set of professional standards for teachers recognizes the significance of a standard framework that articulates developmental progression as teachers develop, refine their practice, and respond to the complexities of educational reforms. This means that if the learners are developing, the Filipino professional teachers are also developing. This development happens during or when they are beginning in teaching in their profession, and this is also recognizes. So these professional teachers in the Philippines is also recognized because they are the standard frameworks that articulates developmental progression as teachers develop that to the learner.